If you've been studying for the LSAT for a while now, you probably realize that it's fundamentally different than other exams you've taken in the past. It's not like the SAT or the ACT. It's not like the GMAT or the GRE. It's fundamentally different in nature. And that's not just because it's harder, but also because it's different. It doesn't require memorization. It's a skills-based test. And so you're going to have to approach it from the perspective of learning a new skill rather than learning information. It can, of course, also be very stressful in nature as well, given the fact that it's the most important factor in the law school admissions process. However, that also creates an opportunity for you to significantly boost your odds of getting in, especially if your undergrad GPA is lower than you would have liked it to be. So a lot of what I do as an LSAT coach is help to usher you through these mindset shifts, to guide you in seeing the LSAT and your prep in a different way, to see them from a different point of view. And so if you're suffering from test anxiety, from the fear of failure, knowing that the LSAT is, of course, incredibly important, I'm not going to say it's not. I want to help you see that although the LSAT as a whole is important, it's not all riding on one particular LSAT test date. The LSAT is offered approximately 8 times a year, so almost every single month, maybe every other month roughly, but you have plenty of opportunities to take the LSAT before applying to law school. And so if you're watching this video sometime in the spring, know that you still have the summer and the fall as well to take the LSAT, and you can still apply this cycle. And you could even take the LSAT in June or August or September and apply at the very beginning of the cycle, or at least very early in the cycle. So it's not all riding on the LSAT that you take in the spring or in early summer. There are multiple opportunities to retake, and they've removed one of the major LSAT retake limits so that you are no longer limited to taking the LSAT in only 3 times in a single testing cycle. So plenty of chances to retake, and law schools, of course, do not average multiple LSAT scores. Rather, they only take the highest score. And so again, the mindset shift I want you to see here is that while the LSAT as a whole is important, it's not all riding on one single test date. And as a risk mitigation strategy for yourself, it could give you some peace of mind to recognize that it's not just on the LSAT in front of you. You can even register for the next LSAT as well, just as a backup, whether you're planning to take it or not, just so that you have that security in knowing if today doesn't work out, I've still got the LSAT again in a month or two as another at bat for myself. And it's totally fine if this one doesn't go well, or if there's a bad proctor or a tech issue. It can help reduce your fears of that quote unquote worst case scenario regarding that particular test date. So that's kind of reducing your fears around the worst case scenarios. Now, another mindset shift I want to usher you through or guide you through in this video is the idea that, of course, the LSAT is not material to learn, but rather a skill to master, as I was saying earlier. So your LSAT prep should not simply involve blindly copying strategies you've gotten from someone else. It's not about memorizing formulas in a textbook or learning key trademarked vocabulary words or terms regarding different LSAT question types or strategies. That will only get you so far. It may help you break the 150 mark. It may even help you break the 160 mark, but it is certainly not going to help you break the 170 mark. And so if you are aiming to score above 170, which I hope you are, it's going to require a fundamental mindset shift in how you approach the LSAT. Rather than blindly copying techniques or formulas or diagrams you've gotten from somebody else, it's about taking ownership of the LSAT prep process and coming to see the exam from the test maker's point of view, as if you were the one writing the LSAT questions, designing the exam, writing your own logic games, writing your own logical reasoning arguments, taking one question type and reframing it as a different question type. These are all strategies that I guide my students through. And in fact, I learned a ton when I adopted these strategies for myself. I actually wrote approximately 10 of my own LSAT logic games from scratch. This was not just me taking one of LSAT's games and changing the topic and changing the variable letters. It was about writing my own game from scratch with unique rules and unique logic underlying the game. I learned a ton from this. It helped me see just how much work goes into designing the clever tricks and traps and illogical pathways they take you down, in the flaws, mental flaws they exploit when they're designing tempting wrong answers. And so I want to encourage you to elevate your prep to that level where you actually could be the kind of person who would write an LSAT question. And of course, these are not the kind of people you run into on the street. These people are unique. They have PhDs in philosophy and see the exam and the world likely from a very particular point of view. But one thing they all have in common is that they are masters at understanding the fundamentals of logic and the unique logical pathways the average test taker will go down. And so I want to encourage you to level up your prep in this way. And if you'd like my help with this, of course, there are a variety of ways I could support you, whether it's through our live online classes via Zoom, our on-demand video courses, our small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. Of course, you can check out the links below the video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Now, there is a third mindset shift I'd like to guide you through in this video as well. And it is related to blindly copying others, but there's a slight shift here because rather than learning fundamental material or formulas or diagrams from a prep textbook, one thing I see far too many students doing is outsourcing their thinking to other people. They outsource their review process to explanations, read those explanations in a book or on a forum, or they got them out of a video, or they copied someone else's diagrams. That's only going to get you so far because, of course, the questions you see on test day are going to be different in nature. They might have similar underlying logic, but meaning that the skeleton is going to be the same, but that might not be immediately apparent when you're looking at the text of the question itself. And LSAC is always throwing curveballs. They're laying traps here and there. And so it's very rare that one question will be identical to another question. It'll be disguised in some way, and there will be subtle shifts here and there. And so you're ultimately going to need to make the LSAT prep process your own instead of blindly copying formulas or only learning how to group logic games into particular types. Because of course, LSAC has gotten better and better at throwing curveballs on test day where there's some new logic game that looks totally different from anything you've seen before. And upon reflection, upon review, you may see that there were certain commonalities to others that were in the past, but in the stress of the real thing, it will not be as apparent. You may see this when you're taking your final practice tests before the day of the exam itself. You'll recognize that, hey, wait, this looks way different. And then, of course, if you're walking through it with a coach or a tutor, you'll see that there were actually certain commonalities. But unless you are able to take ownership of the process and go beyond just blindly copying formulas and templates and grouping games by type, it's going to be an uphill battle. And so I want to encourage you at a certain point, once you've gotten the fundamentals down, put the explanations aside, take ownership of the prep process, and start writing your own explanations to see exactly what the LSAT test makers are up to. I personally learned a ton when I wrote my own explanations for over 1,000 LSAT questions covering logical reasoning in prep tests 46 through 65. And again, I'm saying that I learned a lot when I wrote the explanations, far more than I learned when I read other people's explanations. And so this is yet another shift in mindset in terms of taking ownership of your prep, to give yourself the freedom to articulate your own thoughts, to get the review process out of your head and onto paper or onto the screen so that you are articulating your thinking, which will help you bring it to the next level. And of course, if you'd like my help with this, click the links below to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And if you found the video helpful, please do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to see it. I don't do any advertising for this channel. I rely only on word of mouth to help get the word out, and your sharing this video really does make a difference. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.